This interview is brought to you by Stephen Brassett from the blog Dare to Seek Freedom. Pop over and have a look at daretoseekfreedom.wordpress.com. Today's interview is a little bit different than the last couple. The last couple have been with entrepreneurial types who've created their freedom and their conscious lifestyle around financial freedom. So they have created wealth and allowed themselves to make choices about their lifestyle that way. I'm here with Shay today, and Shay's going a slightly different way. Actually, in a lot of ways similar to how I am. He's more about minimising and downsizing his life and trying to be more minimalistic and just happy with himself. He's quite an egoless person, actually, which is one of the deciding factors of wanting to interview him. But I'll let him tell you a bit more about himself. So Shay, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Shay. I'm 22 and I'm living in Motueka, New Zealand. I'm woofing and I'm currently living in a yurt.
Just to update you, we're actually outside. Shay's wearing bare feet as usual. We're under the stars and we've got the fire blazing. We've got a horse and a dog wandering around us, and that's kind of our life at the moment, which is pretty cool. Now Shay, I see you as quite successful in having consciously created your life, and perhaps you see it differently, but I just wonder if you can elaborate on what a day in the life of you is like. So if you can just describe your lifestyle at the moment.
Yep. So at the moment I'm woofing, which means that I work 5 hours a day, and in exchange you get the simplicities of life, which is food, shelter, and essentially with just that and working, I'm just living simplistic, which is what I hope to have currently. I'm also here so that I can learn permaculture, so that I can teach others in the future as well.
Cool. And I suppose a couple of other things worth mentioning is Shay, actually, to get here, he came from New Plymouth, and I mean one of the kind of cool things about him is he has a way of just trusting life. This is from the conversations I've had with him anyway, and he just decided, I'll hitchhike from New Plymouth. Now that doesn't sound that radical.
Yeah.
People do that all over New Zealand all the time. Shay, however, has a dog as well. So without too much thought about how that was going to work, he just stuck his thumb out and got down here. So that's one thing. Another thing is that he was living in the bush for a while, just took off and decided to live in the bush. Maybe you could tell us a bit about either or both of those experiences.
Yep. Before I decided to hitchhike with my dog Coda, I lived in the bush for quite a long time. I don't know how many months, but it was probably about 4 months more. And that's kind of where it built up to the stage that I wanted to hitchhike with Coda, was because we were just living in the bush, fending for ourselves and using bushcraft and survival skills, which helped me realize that we don't need the economy as much as we think we do. So we built a hut, and Coda helped me keep warm at night, as well as
One dog night. I have 2 dog nights every night.
Yeah. He's a big dog, so he's a lot of warmth.
Yeah.
And day to day we were pretty much just doing tasks like building the hut, going to the river to wash and have a swim. Coda would play fetch in the water. yeah, and then we decided to head on to Motueka when I put a post out there saying I want a place to live on the land and work on food and things like that. And then a lady replied to me, so I decided to take Coda for hitchhiking simply because I can go anywhere without him, really. So we went along and we ended up getting, I think, about 6-7 rides on the way here, probably a bit more. And yeah, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be actually with a dog. Yeah. Yep.
So was there a defining moment when you sort of decided to take on a more self-directed path and really dare to seek freedom, which is the title of the blog? And if so, if you could just tell us a little bit more about it.
Yep. Where did it all begin? Well, I studied in high school doing website development, and then I moved to Wellington, studied for a year at a place called UB in Wellington, and then straight after that I got a job in the web development area for about a year, and then that's where I started to remember that, not remember, sorry, it's when I started to realize that everyone was just waking up and going to work at the same time with headphones in their ears and not being very social and kind of like robots. So towards the end of that, I decided, man, this is depressing. Everyone's doing the same thing, and most of them probably
Not
aren't
paying attention
even.
to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Not even. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of them didn't even like their jobs. It was the way you just watch people heading to work. It was the same as me. It was just boring.
Going through the motions, eh?
Yep, totally. And I mean, it was doing all this work to get money that was going back into the system but not coming back to you. And so it was just kind of a one-way thing, and the economy just seemed very broken. So when I realized that, I started looking at the things that restrict us and the things that were wrong with our current society. And I came to the conclusion that we're on the wrong track and we needed to change things. And one of the things that have kind of driven me to this point is that in schools we don't learn about the first principles, which is survival. So we're relying on a system that if it were to crash, a lot of people wouldn't know how to get food, get water. It would just be a raiding mess, and every shop would get broken into and people would get murdered and raped, and it's a really dark future. So yeah, realizing that, moved back to New Plymouth and learned the survival skills, went hitchhiking, came here. But if I could track it back even further, I would say that one of my high interests is gardening, which my mother used to garden a potato patch, and I would just watch as a little kid. And then from there, I don't know how, but it carried on to my teenage year, where I started to do my own plants, and it was quite cool, especially with growing vegetables, that I could just grow the vegetables that I needed by saving seeds, and I didn't have to rely on the system, which just seemed definitely more renewable in our current system.
Okay, so I just wonder, have there been any challenges along the way, sort of having dropped out of the, very much corporate type of gig of web design, into a far more, again, minimalistic life? And how have you overcome those challenges?
Challenges. Yeah, there's been a lot of challenges along the way. One of them, as like you say, is downsizing the things that you bring along on a trip, and just minimizing possessions in general. I had a room that was pretty jam-packed, a couch, I had a whole bunch of useless junk and technology that I really didn't need. So I decided to, one of the ways I bet that challenge was to buy a 50-litre bag, and that was all I was going to bring. The goal was to be able to run with the backpack, and if I can't do that, then I need to take things out. So that's what I did. I packed only what I thought I needed. For clothing, it was one to wear, one to wash, one to dry. And that went for everything, summertime clothing and winter. And then in doing that, I actually found I had room in my bag to put more things. So I put some things that I didn't think I'd bring, like a sewing needle and some wool and things like that. So yeah, that's how I came across that challenge.
Yep.
And it's actually not that... It feels really nice not having much stuff, because you don't worry about if your stuff's going to get stolen. Having possessions just adds stress to your life. Another challenge, which is probably obvious, is having a dog with you. Hitchhiking, I think, it took me a lot longer than I thought it would take. Of course, it was the first time doing it, and I didn't have any real expectations. So, but by having a dog, you've got a series of problems, which is, will people want the dog in the car? Will people have enough room for a dog and a boy?
A man.
A man, yeah. I'm a man. And, yeah, but no, we found that it was actually a lot easier than, well, it wasn't easier than we thought, but we managed to do it. And the amount of walking that we had to do was quite extensive, but me and my dog Coda would do lots of running and things before the trip, so I knew that we were both pretty fit and that we could walk that distance without any trouble, so that's what we did. I would say other challenges would be living in a woofing situation, because, well, I haven't done it before, so I didn't know what to expect. And actually, when I was looking for a place, I didn't even have woofing in mind. It's just apparently that was a thing. So yeah, so the way I beat that challenge is just to go with it, go with the flow. And so I did the 5 hours, and then I got to hang around and meet new people like Stephen, make some cool friends, and then I was still able to do things that I like gardening, some extra things, like I just potted some plants, some seedlings and some seeds, and yeah, it's a learning process.
There's been a few cool projects going on actually since since the winter finished. So yeah, looks like you're getting some good chance to do some good things.
Definitely. There's heaps of opportunities when you're in a situation like this.
Yeah, that's heaps of stuff, and I can relate to a lot of it as well, actually. One thing you haven't touched on, and perhaps it's not been as big a part for you as it has been for me, but I've found that the process of stripping down my life to the bare essentials, I've had to focus a lot on what it is I'm actually trying to achieve and really redefine what success means, what freedom means, what the barriers are. And for myself, I've noticed that really the biggest ones have nothing to do with what I'm doing, and they really have to do with what I'm thinking and where my head is at. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in my head, and having that time to explore it has been both rewarding and challenging and difficult, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't know, maybe you've got some things that you might want to discuss, or yeah.
Yep. There's been quite a lot of challenges that go on psychologically. Big word. One, for example, is there seems to be quite a lot of judgment if you ever split from the average Joe. Like, if there's a pattern and you break from it, you seem like this crazy person living in the bush.
Have you found people take it personally too? I have.
do.
I've found like people hear that I'm doing something a little different and they take it as a personal judgment on themselves.
Yeah.
It reflects back on them somehow. Have you come across that?
Yeah, definitely. To me, it comes across as insecurities because it kind of shakes the way that they live. And just to know that you can do something different than what society tells you is actually pretty scary, and it was scary for me. The realization that I didn't have to work for our current currency was a huge impact on my life. And mentally, that makes you spin. It's like everything that you've been doing from school. School teaches you to work for the economy and get the best jobs and things like that. So when you've been trained like that, and to split away from it actually starts to impact your life. Living in the bush, as I mentioned earlier, was quite a shake-up to the mentality of everything, because one of the number one rules of survival is keep calm. But when you're alone, not necessarily alone because I had Coda, which helped, but when you're kind of like taking the plunge to do something like that and having to survive in the bush and pretty much just sleep with all the scary sounding possums, which like screaming people. I kid you not.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary. So when you wake up in the morning, you're pretty shaken. Like, did I just hear someone, getting killed or something? It's crazy. It's honestly so crazy. But that to me was quite an awesome thing to go through, because if I didn't, I probably would have come here. Still, maybe I still would have come here, but I wouldn't have been used to the whole being completely sufficient. Like here, you work and you get supplied food and things. But yeah, the mentality definitely changes, like constantly.
When you kind of made a transition from, for want of a better term, normal life into something that more fitted your personality and your vision of what life could be. Was there anything you did to kind of reduce risk, particularly, I suppose, financially, going from something kind of familiar and secure, going into a bit more obscurity and insecurity? Did you do anything to make it easier for yourself? And you can feel free to interpret that how you like.
Yes, one of the things I decided to do is I had a current job before I decided to come here, and I decided that to minimize some of the risks, I would save up a bit of money so that if I ever did get stuck and needed to get food or food for Coda, that I would have something to go on, something to use.
I think that's an important tip, actually. That's a really important tip for anyone who might want to go woofing, and I'm glad someone kind of told me that before I went. Not all woofs are good too, so this is fine, but there are some woofs that don't work out so well for people, so just as a side note, anyone who's planning on going woofing, make sure you've got a way of getting yourself out, because a lot of them are pretty far out of the way, and if you're at the mercy of your host, then it could be quite an unpleasant or difficult situation for you. So, sorry, just hijacked your train of thought there.
Man. That brings a good point, because I already lived in New Zealand when I decided to travel around to here. But for other people, they come from different parts of the world. And so, if you don't have money and you get stuck here, then you're going to be probably deported and then never be able to return, or whatever the process is. But just have that safety net of having at least some money till you find a next woof, or a different way of getting your food or growing it, time for growing your own food, is definitely a great way to save yourself.
Good risk management.
Yeah, definitely minimizing the risk there. Another one is, I had a great support group. I had two of my friends offer if I ever needed to get out, they would pay for my ferry, get me to Wellington, where they have some places that they're staying. And on top of that, I got in touch with someone at my job, which had family that was living in Motueka. So I had a lot of places to go, which absolutely gave me less stress and lots of less risk. Some other ways that I've reduced risk is to just relax, really. Because if you freak out or you start feeling trapped, then you put yourself in a mindset that is highly dangerous to yourself and very risky. So by constantly trying to have a positive mindset on everything, even if you feel like you have no way to do anything, you're trapped at a place you're woofing that has a bad host, that's the word, then it's important to know that actually there's a whole lot more of different places you can go, and each one you learn something different too. So there's definitely no need to be panicked and put yourself at risk.
So it needs to be said too, I suppose, that woofing is usually just kind of a thing that people do as travellers. Well, maybe not usually, but there's certainly a large portion of people who are just doing it as travellers. Shay, on the other hand, is more looking at it as kind of a lifestyle change, which he came here committed to the idea of at least a year at this place, if it was working out, and potentially going on and just not really knowing, not planning too much further forward. So that's an important distinction, like psychologically, as far as, I mean, there's probably no reason to get too worried if you're woofing and just kind of travelling and you just move on and bounce. But if you're trying to kind of set up a lifestyle for yourself, it's kind of a different boat, really. Yeah. So, you got anything else to add to that, or are you done? You can be done if you're done.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good note.
Okay, so if you were to start from scratch, and you can take that, however, whether it be, I don't know, since the womb, or since the end of school, or since, choosing your path for study, or just even just going back as far as going bush or hitchhiking, or your woof placement choice, is, if you were to go ahead and do it again, is there anything you'd do differently?
Well, once I ate too much chocolate, that made me sick, so I would definitely go back on that one. No, but really, I thought about this one quite hard, and I honestly can say I wouldn't change a single thing. Because if I did, if I didn't get the job in Wellington, if I didn't go on the path that I chose to go on, then I just wouldn't be here. I'd just be doing what everyone else is doing, having a ticket to see a show, but just following in line like everybody else. I couldn't go back to that. I won't go back to that now, knowing that I can live a life like this. And so I would not go back. I wouldn't change a thing.
Fair enough.
Yep. Very confident about that one.
Resolute answer indeed. But I feel like there are a lot of people who seem to be exploring alternative ideas and making change in their lives. Have you got any tips about what they could maybe do if they're thinking of taking some dramatic action of some kind?
I would highly suggest looking into different spiritualities and religions, not necessarily to join in something like become Christian or become Wiccan or whatever it may be, but to actually explore the things that they all have in common, because it seems to me that every religion or spiritual path has messages that seem to be connected to simple things, and the simple things are the simple way to live without stress and without being controlled. I would definitely suggest to anyone that's interested in anything that's that what Stephen is saying about living simply, is that to really just find out, to really look at the current system and figure out, like, what would I do if this happened? Why do we do things the way that we do currently and still cause harm to one another and others? And really take a look at your house and home. The world around us is so precious, and we're born and we're able to just freely roam the globe. So definitely take full advantage of that and just start to gain knowledge on things that school never taught you, like basic survival, things like edible weeds, how to grow food for yourself. But that's not necessarily to say that you have to be a gardener or you have to be a builder or something. Everyone brings something of their own to the table, so to speak. So just you can do research in the things that you're interested in, but use it for the right reasons, and just be ready for your world to be shaken, because it will, and it's going to be a fun process.
Cool.
Yep.
Yep. Have you got anything else you'd like to add or anything like that? This is Shay's time.
Shay's time. Whoa, this is powerful. The stars are out. Meditate, man.
Meditate, man. Nice and simple.
Just slowing life down a bit and breathing and looking at the outside world from inside is an amazing way to get started in something like this, I think, for me at least. What else could I add? The whole reason I wanted to kind of break away, which I should have mentioned earlier, but the whole reason really is because I want to teach things that schools don't teach us. And I don't want to use the current economy to fund that education. I want to just share what permaculture is about without putting a price tag on that precious information. And yeah, so that's the process.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Shay, for sharing the campfire with me and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah,
Always nice to sit out here and just chill.
Beautiful stars, beautiful fire.
Yep.
Cookies roasted on the campfire.
We need to go get those cookies.
Yep.
Hooray for dumpster diving, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
That's something we should have added.
Dumpster diving. Yeah. Get into
totally.
your local dumpster.
Totally.
You're missing out if you haven't jumped in the bin.
Yeah. Or got your,
But put
fingers.
shoes on first.
Or
Got your fingers what?
No, you don't need shoes, but but putting your fingers, a whole finger deep in meat.
Oh.
Blood. Maybe you can wear gloves if you like.
You could do without that.
Yeah. Wash your hands, health and safety, guys.
Health and safety, yeah. Get in the bin, wash your hands after. And we'll finish on that note. Dare to Seek Freedom is a blog about consciously creating your own lifestyle, looking for freedom and acting to get it. Head on over to have a look. There's all sorts of articles, links, tips, hints, highlights from my own journey, and also you can check out our Facebook page. So that's daretoseekfreedom.wordpress.com, or search for Dare to Seek Freedom on Facebook and find us there.